In today's video I'm going to be doing question 1 of the evaluation. Now question 1 consists of: in what ways does your media product use, develop or challenge forms and conventions of real media products? Now my film trailer was set to be a crime in the crime thriller genre. Now the reason I picked this was I looked into many different types of crime films and thought that I could develop and sort of follow the conventions usually seen in this genre. Now looking at what I did the same, as in how I followed the conventions, were in terms of the storyline. I used the typical storyline, which consisted of a policeman slash spy agent trying to take down a multinational drug gangster. Now doing this, I showed a little bit in the trailer, like for example putting the earpiece in and the money being loaded into the bag. Also you can tell the different types of characters due to sort of the type of costume they're wearing, both wearing suits, although this is definitely following the conventions of a crime thriller. Typically you'll see a spy and agent, they will definitely be wearing a suit. They're not going to be wearing sort of the typical policeman wear, because they're just going to stand out like a sore thumb. So using two suits made it quite hard to distinguish between the two characters, but adding certain aspects like the golden rings I did for the protagonist just helped sort of maybe separate the characters in terms of identity. Now in terms of sound, I used a variety of different types of sound. It mainly used parallel sounds, so it sort of went hand in hand with what was happening on screen. I think what I'd do differently is next time would be to add a voiceover, so maybe someone narrating certain aspects. Now I did see this in certain types of trailers, so I'll definitely consider using this again. But apart from that, I made use of parallel sound with the type of music that I used and made myself, so this sort of fit the overall sort of flow of the film and helped sort of emphasise the situation that the characters were in. The reason why I didn't use contrapuntal sound is because it just wouldn't fit. Adding a sort of happier styled music that could be heard in American Hustle would just not fit the sort of style of film and sort of gritty crime film that I was going after. Now I did consider this, but obviously to make that music it would be harder than making a sort of very kind of gritty, low tempo, but very bassy type of music. Although this would be developing the conventions, I just didn't think that it would fit my film very well, so that's why I sort of stuck to developing the conventions by showing following the conventions by showing that using typical crime thriller music. Now when it came to editing, I looked at trailers in general, and following the conventions I noticed that there was lots of quick cuts in between the different shots. So adding like very sudden shots showing different types of in terms of location and just overall different types of camera shots would allow me to sort of capture loads of different angles of what was going on to help better the view for the viewer that are watching the trailer. Now this links into my point of camera work. I used a variety of different shots, including sliding shots, tracking shots, and shots done sort of very panning up and down, so vertical panning and horizontal panning. Now how I did this was with the use of a slider. Now I managed to buy a slider off of Amazon, and it just bettered the quality in terms of capturing shots. In the opening scene you can see many shots used with the slider. I found this worked very well, and looked into sort of different crime thrillers and thriller films in general to sort of gather this idea of this sort of very smooth panning style. Now I was considering using a tripod, as I do have a liquid dolly on the tripod, so it's very smooth when you're panning left to right, but I just found that it sort of just limited the view, as only the camera turned, so you're going to just see one object but with a different angle, whereas using a slider you completely change frame, which I believe it just looks overall better, and instead of sitting on a 360 axis you're just stuck at a 180 degree angle just going straight across, which I actually preferred. Also, as I mentioned, I use a Steadicam shot. Now with the use of a Steadicam on a gimbal, this created an ultra good smooth shot. Now this is better than just sort of holding a camera in your hand regularly, because it's going to be very shaky and it's just going to look over at quite poor quality in terms of production. So using a Steadicam just bettered the shots in terms of quality. Also made them very smooth to allow me to capture what was going on. And for example, with the briefcase shot used as a cowboy shot, I did actually edit it in slow motion, so this allowed me to sort of get a continuous slow motion shot. Whereas in previous shots I did without the Steadicam, it was very hard to use the editing because it was significantly more noticeable, the shakiness, as it was in slow motion. You saw every bit of every nick and cranny in terms of movement, so definitely using a Steadicam was better.